Today's hypertrophy day. Not by design though. Little bit of a mishap. You know, these things happen and it's my fault. It's my fault, but check that out, right? So, you know, I was warming up with Sumo Deadlift. I know in the comments you're gonna say, serves you right for pulling sumo. Yeah, maybe it does, whatever. But it tore my callus. I hit 270. You know, it's pretty comfortable, but I could just feel my hand ripping. So I didn't go heavier. I thought I wanted to go heavier than that today just to feel it. And I know that I can, but when you rip your hand like that, you just can't go on. I've seen it so many times where people rip their hand in competition. They're doing like a warm up, whatever it is, they rip their hand and then they'll go in and try and go heavier and it just doesn't hold. So I'll tell you something. Before the session, it was bad preparation from my part. Normally I get an emery board, so like a nail file, and just gently file it down. Your hands should be smooth, soft. So that's a comment that a lot of people say about the best deadlifters in the world when they shake their hands. You know, in strongman they use straps, so that doesn't really count. The ones that have to grip onto the barbell, they take care of their hands, because if you tear a callus, or if you allow your hands to develop calluses, that's exactly what rips off. Like it's a hard bump under your hand, and that just, it's the exact spot that the knurling rips straight off. And if that happens, you just won't be able to grip the barbell. Like you're holding onto it, but the skin underneath just peels off. Anyway, so that's what happened to me. A little bit annoying, but maybe serves me right for doing sumo. No, I'm not going to stop sumo. I just stopped doing sumo for today. And what I did instead is I thought, I'm going to just do quads. You know, if in doubt, just squat more. And I haven't really had a good squat session in a while. I've been going too heavy too frequently. And I think I need to come back to some hypertrophy work. My body responds very well to doing some volume work. My body responds well to alternating between strength phases and hypertrophy phases. So that's a strategy called Monthly Undulating Periodization that I learned from Charles Poliquin. And you know, I don't know if he invented it or whatever, but that's something that he definitely popularized with his methodology. So you do a phase of high reps so that you can do things like build work capacity and build muscle. And then you do a phase of low reps so that you can build strength. And then you just alternate or undulate between accumulation phase, which is volume and hypertrophy, to intensification, which is strength. And those two modalities complement each other. So what happens is that's one of the negatives for doing like linear periodization, where you're spending so much time on one physical quality and neglecting the rest. So if all you're doing is heavy work for a long time, you lose muscle mass. And if all you're doing is light work with high reps, you're gonna lose strength. So what happens here is you're alternating month by month or phase by phase, however long your mesocycles are, between strength and hypertrophy. So you're not spending enough time away from those physical qualities to actually detrain them. So anyway, I know that I'm kind of responding pretty well to that. So hypertrophy session it is. Time to switch on, because I think 180 is good for hypertrophy for me. Time to switch on. I'd like to do a hypertrophy rep range here. What's a good rep range for me? Anyone at home? 8, did you say? Why'd you say that? Now I've got to do 8. I don't know if I can. I've never done 8 on this before. I've done 8 on high bar, I've done 8 on 180, I've even bench pressed 180 kilograms for 8. But on a stiletto squat, it's a lot harder. So, time to get my game face on. Hopefully, I do it. You with me? Hope you're with me. All right, time to switch on.
Put some music on.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. 8 is a long set.
I'm going to put some music on, so you're all right. What are we going to put on? You know what I like? A bit of chili peppers. Do a bit of chili peppers. Good one. Okay. I'll tell you what the sucky thing is about this. I've got to do another set. Let's talk about rest times for hypertrophy versus rest times for strength. It's kind of accepted in strength and hypertrophy communities that for hypertrophy you use less rest, and for strength you use more rest. Why would we do that? For strength, performance matters, so therefore we need a fuller recovery so that we can perform multiple bouts or multiple sets of high quality work or heavy weights without missing reps. But when it comes to hypertrophy, a lot of people are kind of chasing that training to failure feeling. Therefore, when you're reducing your rest, it's easier to train to fail because you haven't had a complete recovery. So that could be one reason why some people think that less rest is better for hypertrophy, because it allows us to work to failure. So why do you want to work to failure? The main mechanism of hypertrophy is mechanical tension. Now, mechanical tension occurs when we train to failure or get close to failure. So therefore, it seems like a good idea to work to failure or have less rest so we can get to failure a bit easier. So that's one reason why some people like to have less rest, which I don't agree with. I think performance does matter for hypertrophy. The next reason is the idea that less rest induces a hormonal effect. So I used to teach this actually, but it's wrong. So don't go by what I'm saying right now. This is what's not right, and it's been disproven that you get a hormonal response. Reducing your rest periods increases things like your growth factors and your testosterone, and therefore you build more muscle. So that's what people are trying to chase with less rest periods, but that's been debunked. Now, I don't want to say it doesn't have a hormonal effect. It may, but not enough that it actually causes anything meaningful. And how are we going to measure it anyway? We just can't. So don't bother with any of that stuff. So when it comes to hypertrophy, in my opinion, performance does matter. One of the reasons why it makes sense to have less rest is so we can do more sets in the same amount of time, which is very good for hypertrophy, doing more volume. However, for me, performance always matters, even when it comes to hypertrophy. So I like to have, especially for the big complex movements, I'm giving myself the same amount of rest, which is 8 minutes between my top sets. Besides 180 kilos for a stiletto squat for 8 reps, it's pretty fatiguing. I want to have a fuller recovery. Anyway, time to get my game face on because I've got 1 more minute rest and then we're on another set of 8. Ooh, man, that was hard. You know what's weird? The first rep was really hard, and I'm like, oh no, I got 7 more of those to go. Anyway, we got there, 2 by 8. What are 2 next? 3 sets or? Huh? Oh my God. 3 sets of 8 would be hectic. 3 sets of 8 would be hectic. I know, I'm squatting twice this week. And the idea is for Friday to be my heavy session. So what do we do? You know what, that was good quality. They were, you know what I want to do? You know what I want to do, Musti? No, bro. I mean, I do want to do RDLs. But here's another thing. I'm on a roll. I'm going to do 3 sets. Could this be a mistake? It could be. I better not miss any reps. Because if I miss reps, I'll be very embarrassed. I can't do less than that. See, that's a different approach with programming. I like to do the reps that I prescribe. So if I say 3 sets of 8, I want to do 3 sets of 8, and I don't want to miss reps. So another approach is having a rep range discrepancy. So on a hypertrophy day, a lot of people love to do things like having a range. So it's like 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps, or 8 to 10, or whatever it might be. And you have usually a 2 rep range discrepancy. So why a 2 rep range? So that if I go here, 180, if I go like 8, 8, 7, 6, it's good. But then if I go 8, 8, 5, that's too much, that's too fatiguing. That's where those last sets, I'm too fatigued to have high quality sets, and it now becomes junk volume. Whereas if you keep it within that rep range, or the 2 rep discrepancy, that's when it's like, yeah, it's just a really great effective session. So I quite like that if I was to use ranges, but I don't use ranges. I don't want to use ranges, I want to hit the exact number that I prescribe. So that, to do that, what you need to do is not go to fail on any of those sets. So the first set, there were reps in reserve, right? Second set, that's how I look at that. If there's a rep in reserve, I know I can do another set. If I give myself enough recovery, that is. If I just gave myself, 3 to 4 minutes rest, there's no way I would be able to back up 2 sets in a row with that rep range. I wouldn't be able to. Because, although it's a hypertrophy style of training, it's still heavy. Performance matters. And I'm still gonna factor in, I wanna get all reps, all sets, and I want this to carry over to the strength of my squat. Okay? So it's not just about hypertrophy for bodybuilding. It's about hypertrophy for a strength athlete has to have some relevance to your main goal, which is, I wanna have a good squat. I wanna have good squat, bench press, deadlift as a power lifter. So therefore, the hypertrophy needs to have relevance to achieving that. So a lot of people think things like hypertrophy phase. A lot of powerlifters like to take time off their powerlifting training and do a hypertrophy phase, and they call it a bodybuilding phase, right? Well, it might be a bodybuilding phase, but you have to understand, hypertrophy for bodybuilding looks very different to hypertrophy work for a strength athlete. The work still needs to have relevance to the end goal. Hypertrophy for a bodybuilder doesn't need a squat. You don't need to load your spine at all. It's a bit of an advantage not to load your spine. So doing things like machines, leg presses, hack squats, great exercises, nothing wrong with those, but they don't have as much carryover to your squat as my choice of hypertrophy exercise, which is a stiletto squat. So, I'm gonna do one more set. And I'm not gonna do the RDLs. Yeah, I'm gonna do, so like I warmed up with the deadlifts, had a bit of a boo-boo. Nothing major, but I just know I can't grab onto the bar like my skin. I need to use a nail file to make that smooth. I don't know if I finished those sentences. The best deadlifters have very, very smooth hands. They protect their skin. They look after the skin and they file off the calluses so it doesn't rip. And you think that you'd need rough, hard hands to be, to have good, strong skin for a deadlift, but actually the opposite is true. If you want to have nice, supple hands. Come on. Whoa, that's it's weird because I can see the speed that it's coming up. It's like, it looks okay, but I feel like my legs are dead. It's jelly legs. Whew, man, that was, I knew I had it, but that's, another strategy that I have when I'm doing rep work of a squat is I take an extra second at the top. before I go down again. That's called breathing reps. Instead of doing constant tension reps. But you know what? That is definitely something that I need. It's something that I neglect, is the rep work. So it's 3 sets on 180. That's a decent weight. It's decent volume on quadriceps. That is how you squat if you want to build quadriceps, which I don't do a huge amount of. I do it like as an accessory, but now I need to do a phase of that as my main work. Not just 1 set, you know, volume. But anyway, I'm going to do hamstring curls next. That's it. Just hamstring curls. And that's going to be a nice hypertrophy session. Like I said, it was a change of plans again. I was meant to go for a decent deadlift, but the hands didn't want it. You know, of all things, I'm very grateful that that's the injury that I have. You know, I'll cut that off. Next week I'll use straps instead to give it a little bit more time to rest. And then the week after, I'll get back to grabbing it with my hands. So if that is the worst of my problems, it's a very good day. You know, imagine tearing a muscle or injuring yourself. You know, that's a terrible day. So yeah, torn callus is just a little bit of a boo-boo. Protect your hands. That's why you need to protect your hands. Because if that happens in competition, it's weird. It's like, it's slippery. 275 doesn't slip out of my hands, but when the skin, the calluses are just not cared for them because I've been doing light work for such a long time that I just didn't care. And then it's like, oh, they're really hard. Those calluses are hard and actually painful. And when I was putting chalk on it, every set, it was pressing against it a little bit more, and then I saw a little tear underneath it. And then on the 275, I could just feel it just slipping out of my hands. And it's not slipping out of my hand, well, it is slipping out of my hands, but it's the skin. It's still gripped onto the skin, but the skin's coming off the hand. So it's a frustrating feeling. Lesson learned. Anyway, I'm gonna take these sleeves off, and then I'm gonna do some hamstring curls, and then I'm gonna call it a day. And that's gonna be a good session, a good way to finish the session instead of just walking away with a torn callus. See this? Here's my little hack. I get toilet paper and wrap it around my knee. If any of you have these knee sleeves and they dig into the back of the skin of your knees, I wrap toilet paper around and then just a little bit of tape so that when I bend, because these are very firm, so that part digs into the back of the knees and it can hurt and it can make your skin bleed, and it makes squatting, especially with that much volume. If I did that without this tape, I'd be bleeding. But anyway, good session. Good session. Thanks for joining me.
One thing you never mentioned, Thor just pulled 5'10".
Thor just pulled 5'10". Look at me. You know why I didn't mention it? It was strategically. Like, how dare I come in for a sumo session the day after Thor Bjornsson deadlifts 510 kilograms? How dare I? That was the deadlift gods punishing me, saying, how dare you? Anyway, Thor Bjornsson, 5'10". And what a 5'10" that was. Whew, how much did he have in him? 520? Yeah, I think minimum for sure he would have got 520. I think 525 is 1,200 pounds. Either 525 or 545. 525 kg. No, into pounds. Nah, it's 545. So he needs 545 to crack the 1,200 pounds. But either way, I think he had 525 in him. 5'10" was beautiful. Like, you can't underestimate it. It was smooth. There was zero hitch. You know, you can't underestimate it and say, whoa, he had 1,050. Oh, sorry, 550 kilograms. You can't say that, because every 5 kilograms more, like for sure 5 more, and I'd say for sure even 10 more. But then when you go a little bit more than that, you don't know what happens. You know, people say, oh, he didn't even hitch, so therefore it was he had more in him. Well, to a degree, but you get to a point where hitching is actually an inefficient technique. Hitching, in my opinion, means you're out of position. And if you're able to, that's what he did. He did it without a hitch. That's because he aligned perfectly. Man, that technique came together. Did it not? Anyway, congratulations, Thor Bjornsson.
What's your plan with this training now?
My plans with his training is we're going to Rogue Invitational. So that's at the start of November. And the deadlift in that is not the same as the max deadlift. It is a max deadlift, but it's a different implement. Not a normal deadlift. Details, full details, no one knows yet. So, but I know it's not a normal deadlift.
Are you going to go with it?
Yeah, I'm going to go this time. I get too much FOMO. It was Father's Day on the weekend. So it was like, I want to go, but then, I've got 2 daughters and can't let them down for Father's Day. So, damn it, missed out on amazing performance by Thor. 510 deadlift, and he went on to win the show.
It's crazy.
He won the whole show, So, what a freak of an athlete. Safe to say, Thor's back. His upper body strength isn't back to where it was, for sure, but it's coming back now, I think psychologically. So, he tore his pec in a powerlifting competition, probably close to 2 years ago now. And that's been a very big psychological hurdle for him, because every time he goes to do a press, of course, like if anyone's ever injured themselves, you'll know that it's not just the tissue repair that's required. The mental repair is a huge part of the process. So every time he holds a heavy weight in his hands, he's hesitant, and you can't be that way when you're going for big numbers. So that's improving majorly now, like literally just for this last competition. His pressing strengths are just like, feels like it's clicking now. Feels like I don't feel anything at all, no sensation on the pecs. So that's a great sign. So Rogue Invitational, still all of the events are yet to be confirmed, but I'm going to be going there. That's at the start of November. And this week he's going to take it easy. He's going to come back in and do a 1 upper and 1 lower session on Thursday and Friday. That's going to be light. And then next week we start the new program leading up to Rogue Invitational. I might have a chat with Thor for you guys and record it for YouTube. Talk about his training and all of that stuff. So that could be of interest to you guys. Anyway, hamstring curl time after I take these off. I need my videographer to help me take them off. So hope you enjoyed that session. I'll see you guys next time.